For more on China, joining us is now Fred Kempe. He is the president and CEO for the Atlantic Council and a CNBC contributor. And I see you everywhere, Fred, but it's been a while since you've been on Squawk Box. It's good to have you on this morning. I was going to say, since the last time you were on, has anything happened with our relationship with China of note?
Nothing at all. So first of all, it's a pleasure to be back. And, I'm seeing where we are right now, where mutual animosity, hostility growing greater. And it feels to me like the period between 1948 and 1962 with the Soviet Union. And it took us that period of time from the Berlin airlift to the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we came to the brink of war, to get into patterns of behavior, arms control talks, superpower summits, exchanges of information that allowed us to navigate the Cold War peacefully. But it's a very dangerous period before 1962, and I think that's the period of time we're in now where a miscalculation could go seriously awry, even if we don't want it to at the moment. So we really have to be quite careful.
I mean, you do need a flow chart, Fred, because I can just think of so many things. There was an article, opinion earlier this week in the op-ed pages of the Journal. We're not prepared for war with China. I mean, even saying those words is frightening. We think of, is our military depleted, given all of our assistance to Ukraine? What's the situation with Taiwan? What does strategic ambiguity even mean? What about the balloon gate? There's so many things. And the recent, I don't know, when President Xi goes to Russia and embraces Putin, and they start using a different currency in South America in certain countries instead of the dollar. All these things make me wonder whether there really is something we need to be very, very concerned with in our future relations with China, which are so important.
Oh, I'm so glad you put all those pieces together because it all adds up to an increasingly dangerous moment in the world's most important, most decisive relationship. It feels to me there have been inflection points in history: end of World War I, end of World War II, end of the Cold War. And I think Putin's war in Ukraine has set off another one of those things. And President Xi's trip to Moscow last week was important in two respects. First of all, he threw away any pretense of neutrality in the war in Ukraine. The president of Ukraine's invited him to come to Ukraine, but he hasn't even called him after the meeting. But the second one, and you mentioned President von der Leyen's trip to China coming in, and she'll be going with French President Macron. The second one that she's worried about, and she talked about in a speech this week, is the creation of a new international order that's China-led, safer for autocrats, replacing the order that we or at least evolving the order that we created with our allies and partners after World War II. And I think that's a big play. And he talked quite openly about that with Putin and said it's the biggest geopolitical shift, and this is President Xi, biggest geopolitical shift in 100 years, and the two of us together can shape it. So President Xi's being very public about that outcome that he's trying to get.